Jane Asple, welcome to the Lead Well podcast.
Thank you.
Delighted to have you here with me today. And maybe to start, we could go right back 2017. You're in what many would describe as a dream job, but you had a little bit of an inkling that you wanted to pursue a passion. You wanted to start your own business. Talk me through what led to that decision for you in 2017 to start Emma by Jane.
So firstly, sorry, thank you for having me, Mark. I suppose back 2017, I was a buyer with Primark pennies here in Ireland. And yeah, I had the dream job, something I'd worked and always wanted. But in the back of my head, and even back in college, an thesis I was doing was all about building a business and a retail business. I always loved retail, which is hence why I was a buyer. And I always just had this nagging feeling that I wanted to have my own business. But before 2017, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And it was on a supplier trip to India where I was a homeware buyer and we were looking at cushions, and I spotted a jewellery supplier, and I just started having a chat with them. I took their details and I decided when I got home to investigate a bit more. I just moved back from London to Dublin, so suddenly I was living at home with my parents. I didn't have rent to pay, luckily, and I started making an order. And from that, I kind of saw there was customs and there was a few other things that kind of came in. But I started wearing the jewellery and kind of testing the quality and seeing if people commented on it. And I always got a lot of comments. And I was like, okay, there's something here. And then in 2017, I kind of was like, I'm going to bite this bullet, because I was, I think, 28, 29. And I was like, if I leave this any longer, I'm going to want to buy a house. I'm going to have a mortgage. I might get married. Hopefully I'll have kids. And that freedom to do this won't be there anymore. And I also, in the back of my head, was like, if I started last year, I could be a year ahead. I could already. So one day, without thinking, not one day, there was many thoughts, but I think I just got fed up of corporate world in my head and thinking maybe I could do this better. And I just decided to jump off a cliff and try it out. And sometimes it's amazing what not thinking too far ahead and not having everything planned can do, because I just was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to hand in my notice in a month. And I'm going to take this time. And before handing in my notice, I had taken a week to kind of cold call boutiques. So when I did take the leap and set up Emma by Jane, I hadn't done it without a bit of background knowledge. I also obviously knew the retail space. I knew how to find suppliers. I knew costings. I had, in a way, and it actually was very strategically done now that I look back, I had built a career around doing this one day. So, and I'd learned from the best. And that is why I took the leap.
Really interesting. And I like how you've described there that, you know, there is a risk involved when you do go out on your own, but obviously taking a calculated risk where you're doing a little bit in the background to see if this is viable, see if this is something that you could potentially do. And by the way, there's so many people who do that and then they don't take the leap. They don't take the risk. They sometimes just feel, no, I can't. I wouldn't have the ability to do that. What was it for you that gave you the confidence, other than doing a little bit of the strategy, because I know that would have given you some confidence, but what gave you the confidence to know that, okay, even if I try this, even if it doesn't work out, I will be okay? Or maybe that thought didn't even creep into your mind. Maybe your thought was, this will work out. Either way, what was it that gave you that confidence to be able to take that leap?
I don't know if it was confidence. Maybe it was literally, I think sometimes you just don't think too far ahead and go, I want to do this. I had a passion to do, like I had a real burning desire to do it. I had a friend that had a business at the time and we used to work out in the mornings before work. She'd be going off, and her life sounded glamorous. And believe me, it's not glamorous when you own a business in any way. But to me, it sounded glamorous. And I was like, God, I'm jealous of that. In a nice way, envious. But I was like, I want that for myself. And so actually being with her a lot and her doing it, I would say was a big inspiration for me to go and do it. And then I suppose I didn't have the risk of, like, when I was in London, I had rent to pay, I had a social life. But I suppose one thing that I did notice, that I was like, unless I give it my all, it's not going to work. So I was doing all this background work in the evenings after work, and, you know, sourcing, and at the weekend I do some bits. But if someone rang me to go out or go to the cinema or anything like that, oh yeah, grand, I'll go, because I have money in my account because I've been paid. It's amazing when you've no money coming in, how you really got to work, and how you really have to be like, I can't do that. And I think that sometimes is the push to go. Sometimes your worst months in business turn out to be down the line your best, because you've had to really scramble to be like, how am I going to innovate this month? Where am I going to find a new wholesaler? What am I going to do that's going to bring cash flow in for the next step? So sometimes those bad months are actually, like, we all need them. It's the same in life. You know, you got to go down to come up. And I would say that I don't know if maybe I was a bit naive and I'm going to be the biggest jeweler in the world. I didn't massively look at the competition. I just knew I have a product, I can sell it well. I can undercut a bit of the higher end, like I can produce it at the same price, but maybe not take the margin, so people see us as we're more affordable, and we can get the customers that way, and that has worked. And over time, sad, we've had to increase our prices because of, you know, we're seeing the world we're living in, everything's going up. But after 7 years in business, people trust our quality enough to buy it. And suddenly we are sitting beside the biggest brands in the world at the same price point, because I've built it up that way and we've built a trust with the customer. So yeah, maybe a bit of naivety and just sheer determination. I've never been shy to work. I've always had a job. I've always wanted to earn money. So I've never had that kind of lazier attitude, I'd say. I've always wanted to kind of progress.
Yeah, and you've mentioned a lot of valuable things in that last couple of minutes. For me, it started with the idea of asking yourself the question, what do you want? And then having the ability to then go and action on that. And I think we've mentioned this on many occasions on this podcast, the importance of asking yourself, you know, what do I really want? You saw your friend, as you mentioned, a little bit envious. I'd like to give that a go. But it was that piece around, right, what do I want? And I'm going to go after it because I'm willing to do the work to make it happen. I really like as well how you mentioned the importance of having the bad weeks or the bad months, and how they really stand to us then. Because often I think that can be the thing that maybe beats the founder or the business owner or even the manager, where they're really doubting their ability because they've had a bad month, rather than seeing, okay, there's some lessons in this for me. It's tough right now, but actually this is going to stand to me as I continue to move forward. So I really like how you've captured that as well.
It's all about resilience, isn't it?
It is. It is. And listen, we use that word so often, but it's important to remind people that it is a skill. It is something we build over time. And you've described really well how you've built that over time for yourself in your own business. In terms of, bring me to the experience of Dragon's Den. You went on Dragon's Den in Ireland. The business was still very young and you equipped yourself really well. You obviously were offered, one of the dragons offered to invest in your business. Talk to me about that experience.
Yeah, I think I'd left Penny's 3 weeks before. Again, I left in January, Friday the 13th of January. So I always like to think of it as a good luck day. And the Christmas before, I had a friend who was involved in chefing and worked with Chinna Will, who produced Dragon's Den. And she's like, Jane, you should apply. Okay, I'll apply. Nothing will come of it. Applied, got to the next round. Nothing will come of that. Applied, kept going. And suddenly I got a spot on Dragon's Den when I didn't have proper branding. I didn't have my own designs coming, like they were still a while away because production takes time. And I had 2 weeks notice to pitch. And I remember my dad is my accountant and he'd probably worry for me mostly, but knowing who I am. And he was like, Jane, what are you doing? What if you get investment? I was like, I won't get investment, Dad. I'm just going on for the marketing. And I won't get investment. I rang him afterwards. So I got investment. He's like, oh God. So yeah, Dragon's Den, again, it was one of those, I'm kind of if someone suggests something, I've no problem in sussing it out and putting my name in the hat and seeing what happens. And that's exactly what happened with Dragon's Den. And it was amazing. Like, we got 40,000 hits to that website that night. It's my 30th birthday that weekend. And all my friends were going out. And I was like, sorry, I have to go home. I've got to pack all these orders the next day. And drop them to the post office. Like, that's how new it was. I had no idea what stock I needed for Dragon's Den or anything like that. I was completely not really knowing anything. And but the pitch was it was intense. Like, they show you 10 minutes, or I think, is it even 5 minutes online they show you? You're in there for an hour and a half. Wow. At one point they show me in the video and I'm like back and forth on each foot. I've worn really high heels and they were killing me. And but it was so they show you, and I think as well they also show you, I got investment. So they show your best or your worst bits. Like, they want the viewer to see a certain side. And because I got investment, I think they showed some really good, I'm sure I didn't answer everything perfectly, but they showed some really good answers and things like that. And but yeah, it was an incredible experience. So two things I think stood to me. Well, the biggest thing was my career in pennies. Twice a year I pitched to our CEO, Paul Merchant, amazing man. And you know, I was pitching margins, strategy, lessons learnt, you know, growth opportunities. What's the market looking like? Fabrics, suppliers. I was talking about everything. So standing in front of 4 business people, it didn't faze me. I knew what I needed. And that was like facts, margins, growth, planning. And I was well able to pitch after all the training that I'd had. So I definitely think throughout my whole journey and in Dragon's Den, my background, and anyone that would ever come to me for advice as a young person, I say, get experience in the industry and learn as much, and learn on someone else's money rather than your own, because every penny matters when it's your own money. And so that would really stood to me. And my brother-in-law, Aidan, is a huge Dragon's Den fan. And I think we did like 2 hours where he just grilled me before. And that was a huge one. And yeah, it was an incredible experience. But yeah, 40,000 hits to the website. So it was just, I went on it for marketing, and it was brilliant. And even, it's funny, a few years later, you'd be at a trade show. It's always the men that remember. They're like, I recognize you from somewhere. And I was like, Dragon's Den. They're like, that's it, Dragon's Den. So yeah, it was brilliant experience. Brilliant. I'd recommend to anyone.
It's funny you mentioned the trade shows there, because actually my wife Sarah, she is a secondary school teacher, but they've been to the RDS Craft Fair obviously over the last number of years, selling products. The 4th year students obviously come up with business ideas, they sell them there. And it was funny because she actually said to me that on a number of occasions, she obviously saw yourself there. And obviously your actual stand was always absolutely jammed during that time. So she kind of said, Mark, I think Jane Asple would be a great person to have on the
must
podcast.
Send her some jewellery.
But bring me back to the Dragon's Den experience. You said you got investment, but then you decided that wasn't the right step for the business. So that's a brave decision to make. You said 3 weeks before that, obviously you'd only really started the business. You've now got investment, but you're going to decide not to take that investment. Talk to us about that. Why did you make that decision?
There was a few big things. And firstly, Chanel, who invested, an amazing woman in her own right, lovely woman, was very excited. My gut just kept telling me no. I was getting antsy if an email came through. We were having meetings, and I think because I was so to go back a bit, because I was so new in it, I didn't know what I needed in the business. I hadn't been through bad things to go, I really could do with an expert here or an expert there, or someone might know this. It was all so new that I think that was the biggest thing. I was like, I spent the weeks talking to their solicitor and afterwards, and it was always going to take a few months to get it right. Kind of going, what do I need? But until you come up with, you face an issue and a challenge, you don't really know what you need. Now I could tell you everything that I need. But then in the early days, you don't. And the experience, I have to say, was professionally and personally a huge learning, because I'll put my hands up. I don't think I handled it well in the background, but firstly, because I, again, it was so new and I didn't really know what I needed and why I didn't need it. And so we'd have meetings and I'd come away and I'd realize we have the same skill set. So I need someone that's going to be a bit different. So that took time to realize. And then we were actually going through this really exciting time in our lives, my now husband and I, where we were buying a house. And I remember coming out of a viewing and having an email from the solicitor, and I just got tense. I was like, Jane, that's like, you should be excited. So it was all these kind of background factors and me kind of stalling things a bit. And I've just always been one to go with my gut. If someone proposes something to me, I'm either a 100% yes in straight away, excited, or else if I even doubted it slightly or I go, I have to think about that, it's always a no. So I kind of started looking at myself and going, why are you reacting this way? You shouldn't be. And that's when I decided it's actually not right. And yeah, I made the decision to pull out. And I have to say it's the best decision. I don't have any regrets. The company has been self-funded the entire way. And yeah, I'm really happy that I didn't. As soon as I said no, my shoulders dropped and I relaxed. And I felt I wasn't, I think I may have felt like I was being employed by someone again, that it wasn't my business. There was something there, but I'd say it was just me, my body telling me, no, this isn't right.
Yeah, it sounds like there was a number of different variables, but probably the one for you, and I love this idea of, trust your intuition, trust your gut, but it was based on a very rational thought process. You've got the same skill set as this other individual. Is that really the right partner to have when, as you've said, and again, that's another real strength, that you know what your strengths are in the business, and trying to get complementary strengths if someone is going to come in, whether that's as an employee, whether it is as an investor. The importance of having people who can maybe be a dissenting voice and not always agree with or bring the same thing to the table is obviously critically important. And for you to be able to make that decision so early on, I suppose it showcases a number of things about you as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, strong will, self-belief. When you think about that idea of self-belief, right? This has come up time and again for myself in a lot of the work I do with individuals. And there seems to be a real issue in terms of, okay, let me just create a small bit of context. If I'm doing something that's really comfortable for me, generally that feels okay. It may not feel extremely fulfilling, right? But it feels quite safe. And naturally, we have this kind of innate ability or innate urge to want to stay safe, right? It's a natural kind of human ability. But it takes a strong and a high level of self-belief to really embrace the unknown, uncertain, take that risk. And when you think about that, that time, you're very early in your entrepreneurial career, what for you really gave you the strength to be able to say, yes, there is an opportunity to bring someone in here who's extremely successful. So that's going to help me jump a few notches on the ladder maybe, right? They're also going to put some money into my business as well. But you knew it wasn't right. But sometimes we know it's not right and we still do it anyway. But you had a strong sense of self-belief to say, no, I don't need to do this. It's not right. And ultimately, I'm backing myself here. Where did that come from?
I've never thought about it that way. I don't know. I wouldn't actually say, like, I obviously believe in myself. I wouldn't say I believe in myself more than you believe in yourself or anyone. I think the gut just got me. And I feel like in the last 10 years, when you go with your gut, life hasn't steered me wrong. I have this weird belief that things work out the way they're meant to work out. I think that comes from living in London. I remember after 4 years, I was trying really hard to leave London. I was ready to go. and I was trying to get jobs in Australia, Singapore. I wouldn't move anywhere without a job. That was like too much risk. But I'd jump if the right opportunity came. So I've always been kind of calculated risk. And then I got approached by the director in Penny's in the Irish office to move back. And suddenly Ireland was never on my radar to move back to. And I was like, yeah, I'll move back. After that, 3 months in, I met my now husband. And so I think through going through those kind of life changes and trying so hard to get something right, but it didn't work out because something better was there. I just have this inner belief for thinking that my gut always steers me right, and just to keep going, because if it's the right path, it will feel right and it will work. And I think that's what it was. I don't think I ever, when I was thinking about the decision, was like, I'm amazing and I'm brilliant and I'm well capable. It just felt wrong and it just didn't feel right. And I just went with that.
And I like how at the end of that you said, you didn't necessarily think, I'm amazing, I'm the best, I can do this. And I think sometimes there is that misconception when we talk about having belief in your own ability, and it really is that idea of having the confidence to trust what your gut is telling you and know that it will work out, knowing that it is right, it is the right thing to do, is to actually listen to basically our intuition in a situation. Obviously, as you said, you've calculated your risks that you've taken, and that's certainly something that I would advise everybody to do. But I like that you talked about there, it wasn't that you were telling yourself that you were amazing. It was just, you knew that your gut was telling you this isn't the right direction, and let's not rush it right now. Let's go back to the drawing board, figure out what we need in the business. This isn't feeling like what we need. And I think that's what we talk about when we talk about having belief in our own ability and having that self-belief to take those calculated risks, is that we're willing to listen to that little feeling or that little voice in our head that's just telling us, right, this isn't the right path. We need to change direction here.
Yeah, and in the middle, behind that all as well, give credit where credit's due. My dad is my accountant and he's an incredible business person as well. So he had watched the Dragon's Den pitch. His business friends had watched it and they came away with their own thoughts on how it might work. And with me on that was my dad actually going, is this right? You don't need her. So I've been very lucky along the way to have a mentor like that in my dad. That actually, it's only now that you said it like that, I was like, actually, God, Dad was actually very helpful and knowledgeable and probably guided me a lot more than I actually remember at the time. And so not everyone has that in a family member. But I do always remember it's funny because the Dragon's Den, as I said, it came on Maybank Holiday Weekend. It was my 30th birthday and we were watching it in one room in my family home, my cousins, my friends, everything. My dad was in the kitchen on his own with his best friend. He wouldn't watch it with anyone. And it was the next day where he then analysed everything and his friends had rung him. And so it was actually, he listened to everything and was watching it from a business point. And I suppose I was obviously very lucky to have that in my ear. I mightn't have listened at the time, but was very lucky to have him and his viewpoint and his experience like in my ear.
How important is it to have somebody, and obviously it's great that it is your dad, right? But by how you've described it, he seems very good at being able to, he'll never separate obviously his role as your dad versus like a business advisor. But how important is it for you to have somebody who can, kind of tell you the stuff that you need to hear as a business owner, rather than, maybe the vanity metrics that we were mentioning earlier on, where sales are great, but actually sometimes we need to hear the kind of the hard facts. And let me describe this a little bit more as well. Like, you've got to have a strong backbone as a business owner. So who you take advice from and whose opinions you value, you can't value everybody's opinions. Some, they're just going to create too much noise. But how important has that relationship been for you to have somebody in your corner who is telling you what you need to hear and guiding you then in their own way along this path?
I'm laughing here to myself because you should hear our phone calls. Sometimes we hang up on each other. They're not always. It might take me a while to listen to him, but yeah, he gives you the straight up picture, and there's no airs and graces in it. It's facts. He has it in numbers, and it's only when you look, like, there's every 2 months our VAT comes in, and the whole family nearly knows, because I hate accounts, and so it's been like God knows how much I'd owe the tax man. Firstly, if I didn't have him, but he has been, definitely he's very business head. He's accounts, he's tax. So, and he's unbelievable at knowing like where the world is going and reading up. For a 70-year-old man, he knows a lot. And so it's been, definitely extremely helpful. I don't give him enough credit, or any credit. He gets it at Christmas in a little extra present. But yeah, it's been, I'd recommend it for everyone. I think everyone in business, it's a very lonely journey, and you need a mentor that's going to be real with you and going to be straight up. A lot of the time it's not what you want to hear, and it takes you a while to let it sink in and accept it. But yeah, everyone, I do think everyone needs it. And it doesn't have to be a family member. It could be, I've got a good few groups of friends that we meet up and we talk. Or if you're having a bad month, we all have retail business, you text, is everyone else having a bad month? Yeah, it's just low everywhere. And you're like, okay, it's not just me. So I do think everyone needs a group. Yeah.
You've hit on two keys there for any, I would say, and obviously this podcast is interviewing business founders, but I think managers experience a lot of the same challenges and difficulties. I think you're right. I think having a mentor, and as you say, it doesn't have to be a family member, but having that mentor is so crucial. And then having a network of peers, like you've mentioned there, that you can actually go, okay, right, I'm having a bit of trouble with this. How are you guys seeing it at the moment? I think those two aspects are key resources for business owners, managers, executives. They have to be tools in your toolbox, if you like, because it just helps you deal with everything else so much better when you have got those resources there.
Yeah, it's a lonely journey, and a lot rests on your shoulders. So it's so vital, and I'd be quite an extrovert person, so me going out to meet someone, it really can change how the rest of my day looks, because it gives me this energy to go, that's a problem, but I'm going to find a way to fix it. And as I think of that, like we've had, like any product business, you have supply chain issues, you have quality issues, and a lot of like our products, we rely on our suppliers to get them right. But even if it's wrong for the customer, it sits on us. The customer only knows us. And it's been 4 years of, like, for example, 2 pairs of earrings not closing right. And in the last 6 months, we have found a supplier that can fix this. And that's 2 years of trying to fix. Right. And that is just a snippet of like day to day. I always remember going and listening to Richard Branson, and like you go into situations and you're like, I have to fix something again. Here we go, another problem. But as he said, and I've learned to accept it now, is like an entrepreneur's life is basically problem solving. If you can just accept that your job is to problem solve, you'll just accept it. And it's so true. Every time we come up face comment, just here's another problem and it's my job to solve it. So it is, it's one of those things I think you need. And that's again, like meeting people, talking, even grabbing a coffee with someone, you've had this problem and you just randomly share it. And then they say, oh, I had that before. I know someone that can fix it, or I recommend this worked for me. So it is having those few people around to bounce ideas off is crucial.
What's your strategy when you get told, you mentioned previously about sometimes getting told the stuff that you don't want to hear, and that can be tough. What's your strategy of being able to, I suppose, logically take the learnings from some of those scenarios, even the ones you've described there? I like the mindset shift, by the way, as well, that it's just, as an entrepreneur, I'm here to solve problems. But when you think about sometimes being told things that you don't want to hear within the business. Let's say you've made a call and it hasn't really worked, and it's very easy for us as business owners to try and kind of sweep that one under the carpet. But what's your strategy when it comes to, I suppose, owning that decision that's maybe not gone right, being able to learn from that and then move forward from that?
So I always go with, don't look at it as a failure. Look at it as a learning. So if something's gone wrong, we've had products that haven't sold, that's a learning. We don't do it again. Sometimes the biggest lessons come from when we actually fail. And a lot of it, you can be down. I have down days. A lot of it is going out with a podcast. I actually find podcasts are amazing for changing your mindset, your attitude, just lifting you. And I would say they're a big crutch actually for me in how I can change my outlook. Sometimes you just have to accept that today's a crap day and we're going to start again tomorrow. And after that, you just get this new energy where you're just like, I'm going again. I'm going to try it. And a lot of it is just keep picking yourself up and just keep going. And I think that's it. There's always bills to pay. So it might be failing, but you've got to push something else that's going to pay the next bill. And I think that's a big one, is just accepting it and moving on. But yeah, when we used to pitch in pennies, it was always lessons learned. It was never called failures. We had part of our presentation for strategy was, what have we learned? And we were always taught that if a product was failing, to get out fast, to not sit on it, just move on. And so I think, again, that mindset and what I learned in pennies has helped me in the business. And yeah, I think it's like anything in life. It's a mindset, isn't it? And it's changing your mindset.
That's the foundation.
Yeah.
And what I really like about what you've described there is, and I love referencing the idea of having a toolkit, right? We all need a toolkit. No matter who we are, we need a toolkit. We need to know what works for us, because those down days, those days where we just are lower in mood, it may be triggered by something that's happened. We need to know how to pick ourselves back up. Like you talked about picking yourself back up. And that's not something that just happens. We actually actively have to do something. So you mentioned listening to the podcasts, obviously, and there's no doubt that can shift somebody's mindset, gives you different perspective. For the next person, it could be the exercise session. For the next person, it could be going for the coffee with the friend. But I think it's important to normalize that those days where if we've made a bad decision, yes, you're going to get over it and you're going to learn from it and you're going to grow from it. But it's also okay to go, feck, I've really messed up there. Right, why did I do that? Jesus, I thought I would have learned from that the last time. It is okay to feel a bit of that negative emotion, because naturally that's going to maybe help you make a better decision the next time, all right? You'll be reminded. But it's then moving to, what is the strategy? What are the tools that help me go from how I'm feeling right now to how I need to be feeling in order to fix this? And I like how you've really, you've described what you do in that scenario, which again, I think people can certainly resonate with that and relate to it. In terms of where you are now with the business, you've obviously got 2 young kids as well now. How do you manage 2 young kids, a business which is still, obviously, you're still growing it and pushing it forward, and how do you manage all of that? Yeah, maybe that's the question.
Crash. Yeah, there's definitely, I started the business when, it was just myself and my other half, and we had a dog. And there's definitely been some challenges. So my daughter is nearly 3. I had her at the end of August. So I worked from home. I was lucky I had a fulfillment centre and an amazing support. My mom, in fairness, my mom is there now minding my 9-month-old. And it doesn't, I suppose I have to keep paying the bills. So I have to keep going. I also, when I had Emmy, my daughter, I always wanted a girl and I want her to do what she wants in life. So I think it's actually really healthy that she sees, that they now both see a mom going off to work and doing something for themselves. There's definitely days I remember when my husband was gone 6:30 until 7 p.m. So it was just us and she didn't nap, and then I'd go to work in the evening, and I've done that again this time around with Cooper. He was born at the end of October, coming into our busiest time of the year. And that was a really tough stretch. I had planned to take 1 week off work when he was coming. I knew his due date, and we got hacked. But it was my own fault that we got hacked, because I was stressed in the coombe and I let the hacker in because he pretended he was Meta. So my 1 week off was basically spent trying to get Instagram back, which is impossible because Instagram don't have customer service. So it was only thanks to a wonderful customer who got in touch, was like, I work in the law side. I'm on maternity, but let me help you. And coming into Christmas, social media is our biggest part. You know, we had a pop-up shop fall through. A week after, I think the day I got home from the hospital with Cooper, I got a phone call to say that Christmas pop-up had fallen through. So we had Christmas stock arriving and I had nowhere to sell in person. So I opened our showroom every Saturday with a 1 week old baby up until Christmas. And my husband had to take over. So it's definitely had a lot of challenges along the way. But then I'm also really lucky that I get to work and have two kids at home. You know, I've had 9 months at home with Cooper now. Emmy's in creche, and he'll start creche in November. And so I've gotten lucky to be able to do a mix of both. And it's definitely changed. It means I've got to really know what like trade shows work. So for in 2 weeks we're in the horse show. That has been for 7 years. We've been doing the horse show bar COVID. And like there's those 5 days where I'll just be gone. But then I'm home a lot more. So it's just a juggle, and you've got to keep moving forward, I suppose, with it, but also be there. And I've definitely found going from one child to two has definitely made it harder, because there are two very different stages, and I know what it's like to be left alone with the two of them. So I can't keep doing that to my husband. So there is that balance, but it evolves and it changes. And I think it's great. Like I'll never forget when I opened our pop-up store in Kildare Village last year for 9 weeks. And by chance, Emmy was actually home from creche that day. So my mom brought her down, and for some reason I wasn't going to bring her. And I don't know why, because the videos are the most amazing videos of her helping me open the doors.
Wow.
And to me, that's like, I think as a female business person, and I just want her to be able to do what she wants to do in life, that, you know, puts food on the table and makes her happy. So I think for her to see that is really amazing. And I think there's this lovely life kind of happening now for women in business where we can do both. It's not always easy. There's challenges. Like I work during nap times at the moment, and then I go back to the office at 8 o'clock at night for a few hours, and, you know, here and there. So it's just a juggle, but you do it. I'm lucky to have both, because many people would have to go back after 6 months and put their kids into childcare 5 days a week. So but it changes along the way.
I'm sitting here in awe of what you've said. Everything from your ability at the time when you had your second child to have to jump back in and obviously fix a problem in the business, obviously with Instagram, right up to what you said at the end there, what you want to try and create for your own daughter in terms of a role model, so she can see and believe that I can pick what I want to do, and if it puts food on my table, that's real success. I think that's such a strong message to send to children as well, where, you know, listen, we're not going to go down this kind of road, but so many people, it's nearly like predetermined. You know, this is the life you're going to have. Whereas what you're saying is, no, you can actually do whatever you want. But not only that, you're going to actually give them the platform by being the role model for them, so that they really can see it and they can believe that it is possible, which I just think is incredible.
Yeah, it's I should also mention my son. It's funny how we go as to the girls of the family, but yeah, I think we're lucky at the moment where maybe back 20 years ago it was seen that you should get this job and you should go to college and all this. We're actually seeing the biggest entrepreneurs in the world that haven't even gone to college, and you know, I think it's so lovely to see that if there's something you like, you can go and make a career out of it. And I think that's a part of social media where you're now seeing people do different things. And so I'm not referring to the influence space, but just your eyes are open to more things and around the world and what's happening and you know, opportunity. So yeah, I think I'm excited to see where it goes for the future of our kids in that way and what they can choose to do.
Can I ask you, there's obviously a bit of a, let's call it a cognitive dissonance in terms of, I've got this business and I want it to be really successful. And we can at times as business owners become very one-dimensional. And as a result, other areas of our life can suffer. So health might suffer, our family relationships might suffer. And it's nearly like something that we don't say out loud, that actually, if I invest time and energy, as much time and energy in my health, time with my kids, my work, if I can create a balance between them that really works for me, okay, yes, my business may not grow to the level it could if I was 100% focused on it, but also I probably wouldn't be as happy as I am if I was completely focused on it. Being a mom of 2 kids, having a business, having a husband, how do you get the balance right in terms of managing that voice inside your head that's telling you you can always do more for your business? There's always another hour to do another thing, because I think that's something that business owners, myself included, really struggle with. There's always more to be done. So tell us, what does Jane Asple do to manage that inner critic, let's call it, of you could always be doing more for your business?
I suppose last year, I was very, very focused on the business. I was pregnant, but we were opening the store and there was go, go, go. And it's funny it's not so funny, but like I spent a year and 3 months at home with Emmy. I went to work for 9 weeks and she fell absolutely in love with her father. Had no interest in me. And I was like, I can't believe he's worked every day. And here I go for 9 weeks. And then I think I was quite burnt out by the time Cooper came along. And then that roll to Christmas, it was hard. And it was exhausting. And it's only when you come out of it, you're like, God, I was really shattered. So this year, what I did was, at the start of the year, I said, I'm going to work on me. I'm going to find me again in terms of just getting a bit of me back, my body, everything. And I've gone a good bit into the gym. And I've really, because last year I would have said, no, I don't have time. No, I don't have time. This year I've got the classes booked in. There's no negotiation on it. And I would say this year, I don't, in my head, have where are we going next? I don't overly know what the next Emma by Jane moves are. You know, normally I'm like, this is next year, this is this, and I'll do that. But I think after coming out of last year, I've needed the last few months just to be at home, work on the business and keep working on it, and it's growing and it's doing well, but not be the fiery, I need to do this, this and this. And actually take the time just to be like, I think I just need to get out of my head a bit, get that mental health right, and kind of just see where we're going next. And I've kind of taken, I suppose, with having Cooper at home, I've taken the pressure off. Do we have to have another store? Do I have to do this? Do we have to go abroad? Do we, all these things. And I've let the business work and progress. I don't want to sound like we're not progressing, but I just haven't, it's probably the first time in 7 years where I actually haven't had this massive strategy of what's next year and what we're doing and all these things. And I've kind of just been going with it and trying to also enjoy time at home because it's so fleeting with Cooper, and soon he'll be gone 5 days a week. And yeah, I suppose I've just gotten massively. I'm really enjoying the gym and what it's given me in my head. That this is the first time I'd say I'm just going with the flow a bit.
And how's that experience of going with the flow?
It's probably the first time I've actually said it out loud. I'm how's it going? Caught me off guard there now. Some days it's good, and some days, you want to be doing more. Some days I'd love not to be sitting back in my office, and I'd love to be going for a walk or something and enjoying, the few minutes I have, because at the moment it is kids, put one down for a nap, work, then he's up, and then you're like doing all the washing and all the house stuff, and then, okay, nap, I can work again. Okay. So it's very like that at the moment. And I think when it comes to him going to crash, I'll probably have that space in my head where I'll be like, what's next? What do I want to do next with the business, and where are we going? But I think at the moment I'm actually kind of enjoying where we are and kind of lapping it up, having him at home with me.
And is it still yourself, like bootstrapped, if you like, self-funded still to this day?
Yeah. Yeah.
What you've described to me there, I think is, I know this is going to sound a little bit funny, but you've actually kind of described what I would see as nearly the dream, right? You have a self-funded business. You have 2 young kids. You're able to devote time to those kids and enjoy those kids. You've stopped putting, crazy amount of pressure on yourself to know what the next move is and what the next strategy is. Your business is still progressing as a result. And there's no doubt that this time that you've taken, where you've, let's say, taken a step back, when things line up again for you to go back to kind of Jane of last year or 2 years ago in terms of strategy, what's the next move? I think the level of clarity that you'll have for yourself will be far greater than it would have been if you had to put tons of pressure on yourself now to try to figure that out.
Yeah, hopefully. It's funny because you're in the day-to-day to it, and it's only when you sit back, and this is the first podcast I've done since last October when I've had Cooper. And yeah, I suppose it is a nice way. Like I say to friends, like, I'm really lucky that I can kind of have both. Like, that doesn't say I get stressed.
Oh yeah.
I check emails when Emmy comes home from crash, and I shouldn't be doing that. There's still the worries that are there and everything like that. But yeah, it's like anything. You have to kind of, I suppose, look back and kind of go, do you know what? At this moment, I'm really fortunate for what I have and being able to be at home and also work, because I enjoy both. I don't think I would have ever been the person that I feel like I don't think I'd be the person that would be able to take maternity leave and do nothing. I always enjoy having a few things going. I get bored quite easily, so I like having a few different things. So the juggle for me is good. So yeah, I'm lucky for the stage that I'm in. And it's great. Like, we've done trade shows and I've been gone for 5 days, and again, that will happen. But all in all, mostly I'm around. And that's good. Not everyone can say that.
Yeah. It's nice to hear as well. I suppose us normalize the fact that enjoying other aspects of your life is okay as a business owner. It's, so many podcasts that you do listen to, and it's all about, and that's okay as well, but it's all about the business trajectory and the growth and the scale. But what I really like about the guests I bring on is we're normalizing the fact that you can run a business, you can enjoy the other areas of your life, you can create the ideal lifestyle for yourself through running a business. And it doesn't mean that you will never have any time for yourself, that you will be constantly absorbed in your business. I think for me, one of the things we want to do with the podcast is try to dispel that myth a little bit and actually interview people like yourself who are enjoying all facets of their life, doing well in business. And I think we want to shout about that and normalize that as part of the process of this podcast. So I thank you for doing that for us today. But I've one final question for you. And this is how we like to finish the podcast, is we always ask the individual for one lesson that they would leave listeners with, that ultimately, you know, it could be something as short as one line or something a bit more detailed. But what one lesson would you leave us with, Jane?
I should have listened to all the ends of all your podcasts for some inspiration on this. A lesson. I don't know if this is a lesson, but I suppose it's, you know, you touched on what made you take the leap. And I'd say every year, like, I'll regret it if I don't do it. So if there's something, and look, it's so easy for me to say that I didn't have financial ties and that's why I was able to set up the business. For me to do something new now would not be the case. But yeah, I'd say try not, if people are listening and wondering, oh, should I do it? If you're going to regret not doing something, do it. And that would probably, it's not really a lesson, but it's
no, it is a lesson learned. Like you,
it's you know, no one wants regrets in life. Life's too short. So write the email, contact the person, take the first step. It doesn't have to be this big, grand leap, just step by step. That's, I think, how we all get at places in life. It's just put one foot for the other, in front of the other, and take a step at a time. And, you know,
I really like what you've said there. Don't look at the big leap, the overwhelming thing. Look at the first step. Focus on the first step. If you take that first step, all of a sudden the next one becomes a little clearer and clearer. And before you know it, naturally, you've calculated that risk. You've increased that risk tolerance and you're ready now to make that move. I think that's a really good lesson to leave our listeners with. Jane Asple, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thanks so much for having me. It's lovely.